Good morning. It's Thursday, April 8th. And on Monday, something very important happened in this country. The Senate parliamentarian cleared the way for Democrats to use reconciliation for the infrastructure bill. Now, this process was used for the last major piece of legislation that the Democrats had to pass, and that was the third stimulus package related to COVID-19. But now we have an infrastructure bill, $1.9 trillion, that the Republicans are fiercely opposed to. They're not opposed to infrastructure, they're just opposed to spending money and going into debt, more debt. Even though Donald Trump managed to raise our debt by about $500 billion during his presidency, now it's a big deal. So in any event, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the fact that now, with reconciliation on the table, the Democrats can avoid the filibuster, and they can pass certain pieces of legislation just on a basic majority vote, which they have. Even though their basic majority is tenuous, because we have people like Manchin and Sonoma who intend to fight lots of different things for their own reasons. And Manchin has already come out and said he is opposed to raising the corporate tax rate to 28%. Manchin said he would leverage his power in the evenly divided Senate. So Manchin has openly admitted that he's going to be a pain in the ass. So it's not a sure thing that anything that the Democrats want to do is going to get done. But nevertheless, they have budget reconciliation on their side right now, and I'm sure they're going to try and use it when necessary. Now, given that fact, you would think that the Republicans might be more apt is a good word, they might be more apt to sit down and try to compromise their way through to these Senate hearings, etc. But Mitch McConnell is fiercely opposed to this legislation, and he is, after all, a bold and stringent leader of the Republican faction in the Senate. Now, the fact that the parliamentarian said they could use budget reconciliation, that is not a sure thing, because you need to work out certain parameters, and it's important that you stay within those parameters. Now, up to this point in our history, budget reconciliation had only been used once per fiscal year. But the parliamentarian has issued her decision and said the Democrats can use it as often as possible, as often as they feel that they need to use the process. Now, that puts a lot of pressure on the Republicans from my perspective, because if the Democrats can use this as often as they want, then the Republicans have to think about coming to the table for a little compromise. Do they want to be left out of everything? I think not. So if they want to get some changes done, and they want to be for us to be more conservative, then they have to come to the table and try to convince the Democrats that there are other things they should be doing with the money. Oh, why are we spending so much on this or that? Budget reconciliation is a good tool to have in your pocket, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It means that you have to learn to compromise. And I am not sure that the Republicans are prepared to compromise right now. This is not to say that the Republicans are the ones at fault all the time, but this time around they are. Now, budget reconciliation only exists for budget bills. It doesn't exist for a lot of other bills. You can't just use budget reconciliation to get around a lot of the other bills that will come up before Congress. And budget reconciliation still comes under the purview of the parliamentarian. She can strip anything out of that bill that she finds to be unacceptable or unrelated to the provisions of budget reconciliation. In fact, in the last stimulus package that was passed by budget reconciliation, she stripped out the $15 an hour minimum wage clause. She said it could not be included in what they called the American Rescue Plan. So nothing in this thing is a dead certain sure thing. But it certainly gives the Democrats more leverage than they had without it. Now, budget reconciliation is not one of the favorite things in the Senate because it's a grueling process. It requires 2 voting marathons in the Senate. And during these marathons, any senator can force a roll call vote on an amendment. It is called vote-a-rama, and these voting sessions are often very prolonged, and they require the senators to be there all the time. In fact, in the most recent vote-a-rama, which occurred in the final stages of the last pandemic rescue plan, it extended overnight, and it lasted nearly 24 hours. The senators are not happy when they have to do that. So reconciliation has to be used with care, and you have to get everybody on board. And so the Democrats need to circle around the campfire and get everybody in line. And they're not getting Manchin in line so quickly. So this is not a sure deal even with it. But at least it gives the Democrats a way to get things done, which we haven't seen in a while. Now, H.R. 1, the voting rights bill, can't be pushed by budget reconciliation because that particular bill is not budget related. So while there are many in Congress and in other parts of the government that want to do away with the filibuster in order to have a majority vote, Biden is not willing to do that. And I don't think we should get rid of the filibuster. I think if things have to be passed and they have to be done and you need to do it, then you have to force compromise. And if maintaining the filibuster is a way to force compromise, then so be it. We need compromise more than we need a lot of other things. So even though the senators on the Democratic side have the majority, and they could eliminate the filibuster if they could get all 50 senators to agree, but of course we have Joe Manchin, who will not agree to ending the filibuster. And has at least one other compatriot, and I think it's Sonoma, who agrees with him. So ending the filibuster is not going to happen, because Manchin believes that ending the filibuster would be negating the rights of the minority. And if I have confused you this morning, I am sorry. But I felt I had to talk a little bit about this situation and about the leverage that the Democrats have gained, and whether or not they can use it effectively remains to be seen. So I will leave you with that and see you in the morning. Bye.